All right, assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Hashim. I'll be your host for the day. Most of you know me already from the special interest group sessions that we conduct each week on one of the technology areas. I'm joined here by Mr. Nouman Abbasi, who is the Vice President of SPS and leads the cybersecurity group. This is a topic that we have briefly discussed in one of the six sessions previously that was on cybersecurity, where Nouman explained at a high level a couple of steps that you need to take place in order to establish a cybersecurity program at your institution. We scheduled this subgroup in line with the main SIG event, so that those individuals who are focused on cybersecurity programs at their university can come together and brainstorm ideas and how such a program can be, deployed in a university. Also joining me here today is Mr. Rizwan Ali. Mr. Rizwan Ali is a subject matter expert in cybersecurity. He has been working with us for so many years now, and he regularly helps customers in the US in the cybersecurity domain. With this, I'll hand it over to Mr. Nouman Abbasi. Sir, would you like to share your screen?
So, Assalamu alaikum and good evening or good afternoon to all of you. Uh, in our last session, we talked about a little bit on a high level on what does it mean when we say setting up a cybersecurity program in your organization. Today, we'll talk a little bit more about a little more details into security management for your university or your organization. The purpose really is to show you what is it out there and what do we mean when we say security management, what is all involved in there, and how can you get started. So in the first 20 minutes, I'll talk about security management. I will have Rizwan share with us some insights into Security Operations Center, which is a SOC. And then we'll talk a little bit about cyber range in the end. So these are the three topics for today. To get started, uh, we look at IT because because cybersecurity applies to your digital assets, and that's what IT is about. And managing those digital assets is what IT operations is. And the goal is for us to protect our digital assets and the actions and transactions coming in and out of it to make sure they are securely performed and there are no threats to our digital assets. In that context, cybersecurity applies to anything that's any asset with an IP address or a digital asset. And the goal again is to make sure that we have identified that asset and we have enough measures in place to protect it. And also to be monitoring what's going on with that asset so we can detect anomalies and respond to it and create and maintain policies to protect it on an ongoing basis. In order to achieve that goal, we set up a cybersecurity program in our organization, which really defines what are the assets, what are the threats to those assets, who are the users, where the information is stored, and who has access to it, and stuff like that. So, and in the coming slides, I'll talk about some of the frameworks or standards we can use that are predefined standards and industry best practices that we could use to leverage when setting up a cybersecurity program for our organization. And then Rizwan will talk about the role of security information and event management systems or SIM systems to set up a SOC in our organization, and what does a SOC do and how does it help achieve the mission of your cybersecurity program. And then in the end, we'll talk a little bit about cyber range, which is really putting your cybersecurity program to test. This is where we we set up teams that are exploiting the system to see if there are any vulnerabilities that they can exploit. And then our defense teams will detect it, and we see how do we respond it if it was happening in the real world. So cybersecurity is a practice of protecting systems, applications, any digital assets from any digital attacks that are coming in, internal and external. So this program will help us build a team and set of rules to coordinate a defense against the cyber threats that are coming into our applications or are attacking our systems, networks, applications, users, or data. So one of the standards, well, one of the most popular standards in this one is NIST, and we will try to go over, we're an overall framework, the NIST cybersecurity framework, to see what all does it include, and picking up a standard is the first step to setting up the cybersecurity program. But once we have picked it up, then we look into it and see what are different areas that we need to look at, and it guides us through the process of setting up the program, and also maintaining it on an ongoing basis. Some of the standards are NIST, like I said, is the most popular one, and it will be probably the most reliable and used one going forward. But then we also have ISO and other standards available. And it, depending on the business we are in, you may choose what works best for you. Some of the standards from NIST are cybersecurity framework. That's the overall cybersecurity framework standard. And then there are risk management assessment standards. Then there are NIST controls that we can go over. And I would encourage all of you to take some time to go over these frameworks and standards and get yourself familiarized with these, because this will help you set up the cybersecurity program when you do so. So, looking at cybersecurity framework, uh, if we talk about NIST, it has these 5 categories, and these 5 categories define how this framework is set up. And then each category has underneath it different vectors that it defines, and then different areas that you need to identify, and then you need to protect, and then detect and respond and recover. So starting from identify, the first step is to identify your assets. So if you are protecting your organization, like if you were setting this up for your university, for the first thing you would want to know is, what are my assets? So it could be your IT assets, it could be your data, it could be your users, your applications like your learning management systems and stuff like that. So once you have identified those assets and you understand the business environment you are in, which will be higher education environment, you do a risk assessment on what is at risk and where do you stand today, and then you create a risk management strategy around it. Now, all of that goes into the identify part, and once you've identified it, then we go into the protect part. Protecting those assets, or your assets, is it includes access control to those assets. Access control is simply authenticating people when they come in, defining access, what they can see and what they cannot see, and what they can do and cannot do, and then making sure it's being audited. So if you wanted to go back and see who did what on what system, you have a way of doing it, and it's typically done using the logs. Protection also applies to your people or your users. So security awareness training becomes important. So in this one, as a part of Protect, we set up an awareness campaign or a training for the users, so you can share best practices with your users on how can they protect their information and their systems. And then data security applies to your data at rest and data in motion. And I mean, give and take, it's everything is the data that we are protecting. It could be your intellectual property, it could be your user data, PII, and stuff like that. So this has some standards and rules around data security, and then we get into information systems protections, and then protective technology. So there are a bunch of tools for protection, for access control, for data security, and so on and so forth. But once you understand what you're looking for, then you go over the tools and see what is the best available out there. There are many tools, there are hundreds or thousands of tools, but you make your choice based on your specific environment and situation. So once you have taken all those protective measures, now you set up, you get into the detect part, which is where you set up tools and procedures to monitor the activity going on your assets. Even though now that you have identified them, and even though you have protected them, you are continuously monitoring the activity on these assets to see who's doing what and what what act. I mean, if you have any attack vectors coming from outside, or if you have any anomalies, you detect them, and then you create procedures or responses around them, which is the respond part, where you respond to an anomaly, and you communicate, you analyze, and then you, based on what you see and find, you can improve your protection based on the ever-changing threats that are growing and coming in. Once you respond, and then then you get into recover. If for whatever reasons there is an anomaly, or there was some digital asset or data was compromised, you document and plan your recovery procedures. So that's this cybersecurity framework on the higher level. Again, uh, the bottom line is you define your critical assets, you assess and review your risks, and then set a plan to achieve your to to set up the program and around it, and then you communicate this plan to your management and executives for their to set expectations and approval. Now, SPS's CSM is a tool that helps you bring it all together. NIST framework, and there are a bunch of other frameworks or standards you could use, but this will allow you to bring it all together. So you can define your assets here, and it will guide you through the process of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And for each one of these categories, it will guide you through a questionnaire that you can fill out to assess where you're at, which is usually the first step. And then it will guide you through the stakeholders, who's managing what, who's responsible for what assets, and then what are the applications and locations and the users. Uh, Again, if you need access to this tool, you could always send us an email on spinlabs@spsnet.com, and we'll be happy to set you up for it. Now, now I'll pass it on to Rizwan, who will walk us through the Security Operations Center, and then in the end, we'll talk about cyber range. Security Operations Center is is once you have set up a security management framework or the program, this is an operations center. So this is a team of analysts monitoring what's going on and making decisions on, or analyzing and then making decisions on how do we respond to it and recover from it. This is done typically using certain tools like SIM tools. One of them is QRadar. I think Rizwan will talk a little bit more about it. And the tools like these, they allow us to give us a consolidated view of what's going on because it's capturing logs from all your digital assets, and it brings it all into one single pane of glass. And then you can, and then it has artificial intelligence built into it. It will flag the events that the system believes are could be an anomaly or could be a threat. And then it also performs scans and other stuff that Rizwan will talk about. So I'll pass it on to Rizwan, and then Rizwan, I'll talk about cyber range in the end. Rizwan?
Yes, thank you, Nouman. Assalamu
Rizwan,
alaikum.
you want me to skim through the slides, or you want to share your desktop?
Please keep the slides up.
Either.
I think we have to, yeah, I don't
Okay.
have this.
Go ahead.
Okay, so just does anyone have any questions regarding the sections just that Nouman has just covered?
Gigi, I have one question. क्वेश्चन ये था कि सिंस यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट अ प्रोग्राम एंड वी आर एट द यूनिवर्सिटी, तो फ़ौरन से पहले जो है ना हमारे जहन में प्रोग्राम आता है एकेडमिक प्रोग्राम का. तो वंस यू स्टार्टेड योर प्रेजेंटेशन आई थॉट यू वर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट द एकेडमिक प्रोग्राम to be implemented in HEI, whereas you guys are talking about the operational aspect of cybersecurity in an IT setup, right?
Yes, but it's actually, Dr. Saab, it's interesting. It's actually a combination of both.
Did
It does have, when we set up a cybersecurity program, you're basically, oh, so we're basically setting up an operational program, yes, but also it's educational. Like we want people to be aware of what this program is. We want our developers to know when they're developing applications. Here's the standard. It's like a constitution. This is what you have to follow or keep in mind while you're doing this. And then when we form teams, there are a set of rules that everybody is playing by. So I would say it's a combination of both.
Excellent.
Jisad, to add to what Nouman said, we are very cognizant of the structure in academia, and in academia, nothing just gets done because somebody wants to do it. There are procedures and processes, and so there are two aspects of the same thing. I think one aspect is that for those for those responsible for managing the information technology assets of a university, this exposes them to the capabilities that are out there. And so if they start using it inside their own infrastructure, that provides a nice lab or framework that could even be used by the curriculum. And I think in the curriculum, the way I look at it is that usually the courses are structured, and so once this program is in place, then faculty can pick and choose as to what tools and assets that were being used on this thing, they could be leveraged there. So, but our objective is to spread the knowledge, and whoever wants to leverage it, we'd be very excited about sharing that in any regard. So back to you.
Thank you. Well said.
You're most welcome.
Okay, so does anyone has any other questions? Okay, I think we are good. So as far as the security operation centers is concerned, there has been always a concept of NOC, that's called the Network Operation Centers. And NOC has always been a part of OT. That's the operational size of any organization. Or we can say also the part of IT, where a dedicated team of network engineers make sure that the communication between the devices and the network of an organization is not only monitored, but it's also managed. So with the development of information technology and the cyber threats that have been emerging, right? So SOC has become how do you say, it has become a very integral part of any IT infrastructure of any organization. So as far as the universities are concerned, they are not different from any any other organization that has a set of users. There's a set of resources on which these users have accesses, and the way they use these resources. So the threats or the security threats that we will talk about, there are like let me give you an example of like as Nouman has already spoken, like there are a bunch of assets that are to be protected, and these assets can be your data, it can be your actual resources that you give the students access to, for example email servers, FTP servers, stuff like that. Then there would be a set of other resources such as their email access and their like for example their lab equipment and so on and so forth. So the security operations centers is basically a group of people who keep an eye on the logs that are coming from these different assets, and make runtime decisions on whether or not something abnormal is going in any organization, and how to reduce any emerging security threats. Next slide. Okay, so basically this slide shows you a kind of like an overview of what is included in SOC. So basically we have the logs. Um, there's reporting on those logs. There's research and development. When we say research, it means like all the systems, like most of the systems, what happens is like logs present a kind of like anatomy of that particular asset that we are talking about. What is going on with that system at any point, given point? Different symptoms, they all show up in logs. Based on those logs, most organizations, what they do is they opt for a SIM solution. SIM is a security incident and event management solution. So when we talk about security, again, it comes back to, everything comes back to, mostly in case of SOC, it comes back to security. What happens to any asset in any organization, it's all written down in logs, and there are different types of logs and different levels of logs, right? Based on whatever the logs is showing, it can tell us a lot about what's going on with that asset. So mostly the threat intelligence is basically if there is anything that is going on with those logs are in a huge, how do you say, it's a huge bulk, and in most cases it's not humanly possible to go through all of these logs. So what we have is, in SIM solutions, we have a set of rules, right? If something, so basically what happens is that SIM solution not only gathers the log, but it parses them in such a way that it is human readable. And the second thing that a SIM solution does is it basically correlates these offenses. Like a login failure that can occur on a system can be related to another incident of a user that may or may not uh, be be breached, right? And how can we know that a user is breached or not? There are different symptoms. Like if a user who's supposed to log in at let's say 8 a.m. in the morning has started to log in the middle of the night, or starts logging in at a time where he usually does not log in. So all of those kinds of things, they are called like they fall into user behavior analytics, which is a kind of like threat intelligence that is built into to most of the industry standards of SIM. Like if you talk about Splunk or QRadar or Logarithm, all of these SIM solutions, they have some kind of threat intelligence already built into it. So so basically, once we have these logs slash incidents coming in, what do we want to do with them? So we want to once an incident, or once these logs are in and they go through this parsing and then correlating, what's being done with them is that they either fall into an incident or non-incident category, right? If we say that they are an incident, someone needs to go in there and see what's happening with these systems. So how is that happen is usually through a trouble ticketing system. We also called it an incident response plan. So basically an incident response plan is nothing more than, okay, if this thing happens, right? What are we supposed to do with something when it happens? For example, again, I'll come back to the example that I gave. Okay, someone who's not supposed to log at a certain time is logging in at a certain time. So someone from the SOC would raise a ticket saying that, hey, this thing is being happening, right? And that ticket then goes back to the asset whoever is the asset owner, and we use the term stakeholder for that particular person who's basically the responsible party for any asset, right? What he does is he basically looks into it like, okay, and he'll reach out to the user saying that, hey, you are being logged in from XYZ system at this time. was it really you, or is it something? It's nothing different than if you ever log into your Gmail account from a different location or from a different device, you get an email saying, like, hey, was it you or someone else, right? Again, SIM, we have spoken about SIM, and we have spoken about what it does. It correlates and aggregates the logs into a human readable form slash passes them through some rules. So does anyone have any questions regarding the SOC and the whole SIM system?
I've got one question.
Please go ahead.
Uh, uh, all these arrows representing one functionality, do we have to purchase or set up a separate system for each one of those arrows, or this can be accumulated in one software solution?
Okay, so most of these things come built in a SIM, like any industry-based SIM, as I gave example of Splunk or QRadar or Logarithm. They have pretty much more or less all of these functionalities built into it. Log collection is the first capability. Ticketing system, sometimes it's built in, like you can send the ticket slash an incident from the sim itself, or most of the time what happens is like you already have a ticketing system built into your system, and instead of QRadar or that sim solution sending out the tickets by itself, it sends it to the trouble ticketing system or TTS that you have. And that's how it works. And pretty much most of these other functionalities like reporting, threat intelligence, knowledge base, and aggregation and correlation, these are all built into it. Now, the research and development part is the part where actually the SOC comes in, right? Once a rule has been fired, right? Like, again, I'll give the example of the rule as a user login failure, right? When that happens, the team of people who is monitoring your SIM solution, right? They are supposed to make a decision whether this incident that our SIM solution is saying is an incident is an actual incident or not. And that's where basically the people that are called SOC analysts, they come in and they kind of like make this decision. If there is an incident which comes out and the SOC team says, hey, this was not an incident, it was a false positive, that's where they go back in the SIM solution and they modify the rule to say like, hey, if this thing happens in future, do not raise an incident because it was not an incident. So to answer your questions, like in a short form, I would say most of these solutions, most of these properties that are being shown around SOC, they they do derive from a good industry-based SIM solution. Most of the industry-based SIM solutions provide you all of these functionalities. Move on to the next slide, Nouman sir. Okay. So, security operation centers, what are the objectives of a security operation centers? Like most of the security operation centers are developed based on these objectives. There may or may not be other objectives. First is to protect your mission critical data and assets, right? In cybersecurity, most of the things, like pretty much all of the things, they revolve around these three things: users, data, and assets. So what SOC does is it basically protects your users, your data, and your asset. It prepares for and responds to cyber emergencies. When we say cyber emergencies, what we mean is like we all will sooner or later get breached, right? And once we do get breached, what are the next steps that we are supposed to do, right? Unless we have a cybersecurity program, and in this case, it's not the SOC but the cybersecurity program, because SOC is a part of cybersecurity program, and the cybersecurity program on a whole contains a list of other things that such as risk management, incident response, security management, and security policies and everything else. So basically, a SOC, one of the other things that a SOC does is it makes sure that you are complying to all of the compliance standards slash regulations that are in any organization. And I know the compliance part is not that big in Pakistan as of yet, but it would be in the coming years. In order to work in any of the sectors or any of the industries, right? There are industry-based regulations to which you have to be comply in order to say that, hey, we are doing business. For example, if you are in states and working in health, right? You have to be HIPAA compliant in order to work properly. And in order to get HIPAA compliant, there is a set of NIST rules, as Nouman said earlier, right? To which you have to comply. And SOC and slash SIM solution, what it does is it's kind of like a part of solution where you can say like, hey, we are HIPAA compliant by following XYZ things. And in following of those XYZ things, one of the things that we have is that we have a SIM solution that does these X number of check marks out of what we are supposed to do. Does it make it more oblivious, or does it make any sense? Then it helps. Once I'm still on the previous slide. Okay, it helps provide you continuity and efficient recovery. Okay, so once a cyber emergency or a threat has happened, or a breach has happened, right? The number one thing that all the industries slash all the companies, organizations, they look forward to is, okay, we need to know a snapshot of what happened, when it happened, and most importantly, they need to have their business continuity in place in order to move forward or recover from that threat. And then fortify the business infrastructure. It's like once you have a SIM solution in place, what it does, it shows you kind of like gaps in your security, the infrastructure, and you can do a skill gap analysis and saying that, hey, XYZ things are happening, and we need to come up with a security policy saying that in future if these things happen, that's how we are going to respond to those. Now again, we go to the next slide. Okay, so the major responsibilities of any SOC are to like monitor, analyze, correlate, and escalate intrusion events. Intrusion events are again different security events. Like one of the events is like the intrusion event. Intrusion is like nothing else, nothing more than someone who is not supposed to be in your infrastructure. If they try to get into your infrastructure, it's called like an intrusion event. Develop appropriate responses, protect, detect, and respond. So the first thing is that you have to protect your assets. You have to detect if there are any intrusions or anything, any anomalies that are happening, and then better prepare for how to respond to those anomalies. Conduct incident management and forensic investigation. So incident management is, okay, IRP, it's incident response plan. If an incident happens, what are you going to do after that? And forensic investigation is, again, as I said, take a snapshot of when it happened, how it happened, and what was breached slash taken away or whatever, or what was compromised. Maintain security community relationship. That's more of a PR thing. Okay, if PR slash risk management thing. Okay, if something happens in an organization, what is the risk? Like, what is the monetary risk that is going to happen if you get breached? For example, if health companies they get breached, their clients can do a lawsuit on them, and they have to pay, and so on and so forth. So it pretty much falls onto all of the companies that are being regulated by different compliances. So assist in crisis operation. So once something is breached and you have to bring them up, you need to have the SOC's input on what had happened and how to mitigate that particular incident in future, so that once the systems do come back up online, they are not breached again. Any questions so far? So basically, SIM is a security information event management system. It's basically a software that tracks your logs. It analyzes and then aggregates different logs that are coming from different assets and data from your organization, It collects your security data from network, devices, servers, domain controllers, and etc. We can move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is basically a SIEM and all of the functions that it does: log collection, real-time alerting, user activity monitoring, log analysis, event dashboards, reporting, IT compliance, application log monitoring, object access auditing. Like pretty much most of these things we have already spoken about. Does anyone has any questions so far? Okay, these are some of the examples of SIM solutions that I've been talking about: IBM QRadar, Splunk, Logarithm, McAfee, Exabeam, Fortinet, Dell, Rapid7. So this is a growing market, and a lot of companies have developed their own SIM solutions. And if you want to like go see which SIM solutions you want to invest in, or your organization wants to invest in, you can go to Gartner and different sites to see what is the best fit for your organization. So pretty much most of them, they have the same set of things that they do: collect data, have a set of rules on which to process that data, and then report you on that. So basically, this is the three main core function of anything. Building a security operations centers. So what does it take? It takes people, it takes processes, technology, and then the governance slash matrices, or for a lack of better term, slash compliance, right? So people, you need to have a skill set of group that, as we said in the very beginning. Processes are different kinds of process, like your security process, your incident response plan, and so on and so forth. Technology is okay. SIM architecture, how you have set up your whatever SIM technology that you are using, and then governance slash matrices. What do you want to get out of that SIM solution? Are you want to be compliant to something? Do you want to have better controls? Do you want to have better visibility? So on and so forth. Any questions over here?
Dr. Mudassir is raising his hand.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a small question.
Waalaikum
You showed quite a bit of SIM solutions in the previous slide. I was wondering, these probably are proprietary solutions. I don't know of them. Do you know any open source solution which, for example, people can work with in a research environment, or research community can work with, or because these would be some all paid solutions if I talk
Okay.
about it from a university perspective?
Yes, so Dr. Saab, there are a bunch of open source solutions as well, right? And before going into open source solutions, I would like to tell you that most of these solutions, right? If you looked at them, they all have their own academic initiative programs, and in those academic initiative programs, you can pretty much get these solutions at pretty much no cost, or like minimum cost at most of the academic institutes as well. So one of the like there are a couple of like open source as well, or open source SIM solutions as well, and one of the ones that I worked with, it's skipping my mind right now, but it was called uh, I'll send you some examples of open source SIM solutions, but there are a couple of them that are good. But the whole issue with the open source SIM solutions is like with anything that is concerned with security, right? And when we talk about open source, like this is community developed, right? So people do not show a lot of, how do you say, trust on something that is community built when it comes down to security. You see where I'm coming from, Doctor?
Yes, I understand. But I agree with you as well. I was more of thinking about कि अगर एक हम कोई research contribution करना चाहें, and with open source we have option कि हम कोई एक part plug and play करके उसके अंदर, for example, SIM solution has lots of things, investigation भी हो रही है, forensics भी हो रही है, log monitoring हो रही है. So अगर कोई research कोई project करते हैं हम, तो how we can contribute to that somehow. एक तो है ना यूजर के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से कि इसके ट्रेंड ह्यूमन रिसोर्स क्रिएट हो जो इन सॉल्यूशंस के ऊपर काम करना जानती हो. That's kind of skill set we also need to have. But from a research community, हम ये भी चाह रहे होते हैं कि okay, this is something which needs to be developed. तो ये चीज ये एक सोल्यूशन है जो प्लग एंड प्ले देता है, उस चीज को आप मॉडिफाई करें, कुछ अपना कंट्रीब्यूशन करें, दैट वुड हैव सम बेटर वे ऑफ थिंग्स। जी
जी तो डॉक्टर साहब, इसके अंदर the best part of most of these solutions is that they all of them, they provide you a SDK, that's a software development kit, right? So what they do is they allow you to create content, they allow you to agar for example, I'll give you example, I'm most familiar with QRadar, right? तो बेसिकली QRadar के अंदर if you go in there, right, और अगर आप देखेंगे यार, देखें for I'm just giving an example, right, कि there is a certain capability, ठीक है, जहाँ पे you want the QRadar to do something, जिस तरह आपने कहा research and development, you came up with let's say a niche or a cliche, right, कि यार ये अगर for example इसकी integration, just for the sake of example मैं कहता हूँ कि यार अगर इसकी इंटीग्रेशन जो है वो मेरे पास ये एक कस्टम लॉग सोर्स है जिसका DSM, जो डिवाइस सपोर्ट मॉड्यूल्स होते हैं बेसिकली, जो आपके लॉग्स लेके उसको पार्स करते हैं, ठीक है, अगर कोई ऐसा मेरे पास कस्टम बिल्ट एप्लीकेशन है जिसका पार्सर नहीं लिखा हुआ, ठीक है, और आपकी टीम चाहती है या आपके स्टूडेंट्स ये चाहते हैं कि यार हम इसका पार्सर लिख दें, तो ना सिर्फ आपके पास SDK अवेलेबल है, बल्कि solution itself will provide you all the facilities to create a DSM for that particular क्या कहते हैं उसको, for that particular log source, ठीक है। इसी तरह if you want to add some capability, for example, just for the sake of example, I would say कि अगर for example आपकी कोई ट्रबल टिकटिंग सिस्टम है जिसके साथ for example out of the box ये सिम जो है इंटीग्रेट नहीं होता और आप उसको इंटीग्रेट करना चाहते हैं, तो you have the access to all of the APIs that are available on these solutions, ठीक है। आप अपना SDK के अंदर एक छोटी सी एप्लीकेशन लिख के, not only you can use it for yourself, but there is a place that's called IBM application repository, Nouman sir, what's it called? जहाँ पे वो ये
Global
QRadar से एप्लीकेशन, सॉरी,
or App Exchange or Global Solutions Directory.
yes, App Exchange. So basically, not only can you use it for yourself, but you can upload it on the App Exchange so that others can use it too. Or IBM verifies it and then gives you the credit for it, that you develop that
And
kind
Dr.
of
Saab,
plugin for it.
yeah, Dr. Saab, I would like to add something. IBM has, and I'm sure other vendors have it too. They have these academic initiatives where they give out software for free for R&D use and stuff like that. And we can talk about this a little in more.
that's great.
Nouman, I'd like to add to what Dr. Aslam asked. On
Yeah.
Dr. Saab case mein, I think you were alluding to not leveraging products, but indeed partnering with their research entities. जो कि research कर रही हैं, and they're always very there's a lot of affinity to partnering with faculty who are already accomplished and who are in the research space. So there are several IBM research labs, and in fact, what I'll do is that I will share with you links for those, and then there can be synergies, and they literally provide who are the PIs and how you can talk to them and collaborate with them. So I think if you were in that direction, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Mansab, I think, yeah. So basically, this is almost the end of the SOC presentation, and the goals are, if you want to enroll in the SOC internship program. So basically, in that program, what we are going to do is we are going to let you have the free version of QRadar that's available out there, to set it up for yourself, play around with it, and then have any of your interested students to roll up for that. The good thing about, since again we come back to IBM because we mostly partner with them, is that they have a security learning academy where courses / hands-on labs, well, they are not hands-on anymore, but they're pretty close to hands-on. We call hands-on, to work with these things and see how they can play around with that. So the best thing to have it is get the community edition for QRadar, download it on yourself on any of the space. It takes like really less space, like 8 GBs of RAM is more than enough to get the community edition started, and then play around with it so that you can get in future you not only get certified but also set it up for the whole thing for the whole university perspective. So we have the we have like if Nouman sir, can you go to the teams where you have like yeah setting up the SOC for university. So these are some of the steps that you can follow. You can review the building of your SOC slide deck. Then you can go for the day one slide deck and day two and three slide decks. And once you have installed the community edition, there's all like everything in this particular slide has an associated link with it, and you can go over there and follow those instructions. If you have any questions, you can always reach me out at this email address, right? And then we are going to have this 1 hour session on every Tuesday. And if you guys like come up with any other discussion topics or you guys get stuck, you can always come in that one and reach out to me and we can talk about that. The goal here is to get as many people, not only mostly students, right, enroll in this program and get certified. Because once you go out from the university, right, people do not ask like mostly when people ask you about is like, okay, as far as different products are concerned, what is your skill set? And the one of the ways to show your skill set in those most of these areas is to get a skills badge or a certification saying that, hey, yes, I know this product, I've worked with this product, and I've got these XYZ badges and this XYZ certifications in such a product, so that you get like kind of a heads up a stride in front of the rest of the people that are appearing for any kind of interviews and so on and so forth. So any questions so far? Okay, then I would give it back to Nouman on the cyber range thing, and thank you.
Thank you, Rizwan. And Dr. Saab, I'll share this link with you. This
Quick
that can
comment,
yeah. Go ahead,
a
Hashim.
quick comment, Nouman sir. Try to if we can wrap this up in another 5. We're already past the time
Yes.
that we've allotted. If we can wrap it up
Yeah,
in
Hashim,
another 5 minutes.
yeah, I think here at the end of it, the last thing I wanted to talk about was cyber range. And I've talked about it uh, briefly in my previous session. I would just like to reiterate some of this stuff for. Okay, so we've talked about setting up a cybersecurity program for an organization. Rizwan talked about Security Operations Center, which is responsible for analyzing the state of security and also day-to-day operations and detecting any threats and compromises. Now, the cybersecurity, the cyber range uh, is 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 really putting all of that to test. So in this one, what we do is we create teams within our organization that will test the system and our processes and procedures to see if we can how the attackers would come in. So that and especially for universities and for students, I think this could be a great learning experience as well, because it will give them an idea of ethical hacking on what are the attack vectors, how do you exploit the system, and because once you know that, you can defend the systems, or you can have your protective technology or tools or procedures guard guard against those attacks. And 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 then there's a blue team that is the defense team that would detect those attacks and respond to it, and that results into these exercises would result into some compromises, some exploitations that will work, and that identifies areas or gaps that the organization needs to fill up. And if you go to SPINN Labs website and under cybersecurity earning opportunities, we have this course development opportunity. Uh, this course is really around cyber range for both for red teams and blue teams, and then it has 8 different sections to it. For each section, you will see that there are certain use cases that are in these sections, that the students or your members of your team can learn from. They can, see how for example, how Windows file structure and basic commands are run to access a file system and to probably get data out of it. So these use cases will help us get our arms around, what are the possible attacks and how do we defend against them. But at the same time, it will also put into test the cybersecurity framework that we have, or the rules and procedures that we have in place, and also the Security Operations Center. So I would strongly encourage all of you to when you have some time, go over these and see if this makes sense to you, and try to replicate. We were thinking about setting up an event later this year in Q4, where we could have these teams set up and do these exercises that will really help you get your that will really help you understand the real world scenarios. So, any questions?
I have a small question. ये जो आप दिखा रहे हैं, ये these are trainings already created, or this is something that you are developing right now? For example, we are offering ethical hacking course in the university already. I don't think we have that in this semester, but last semester we had that. So it would be good if we could integrate these things in our academic course. That would be great.
So if you notice, this is under earning opportunities, which means this is an open opportunity for whoever is willing to help us. So because we have to develop this course, and if we can get some help, we'll be willing to pay money or compensate for it. Usme, these sections are the sections that we will be developing. And if somebody is interested in helping us with it, then we'll be happy to talk to them about it.
Okay, good. I will talk to the resource person who is doing this in our university, and then I will discuss and get back to you, hopefully with something.
Absolutely.
डॉक्टर मुदस्सर सर, मैं थोड़ा सा ऐड करना चाहूँगा क्या, साद अली मलिक फ्रॉम नमल इंस्टीट्यूट मियाँ वाली, तो SPS के साथ इंटरेक्शन स्टार्ट हुआ बैक इन दिसंबर, and since December we were just thinking, till December at Nouman Institute we were thinking of coming up with an academic program for initiating cybersecurity and cybersecurity awareness and programs like that, ताकि हमारे students जो हैं they get skilled for this particular niche in the market. अच्छा सर, उसमें एक कमेंट ये है कि since December till today, alhamdulillah, बल्कि I would commend SPS for their efforts. They not only brought us to a level where we can actually now install an open source cyber range software, they have been kind enough to share the QRadar community edition with us, and we have been able to install it on our systems here as well. Thank you to Rizwan as well as Nouman, and a big thank you to Hashim Saab as well. Hashim has been very kind enough to collaborate with us and integrate our efforts. तो इसमें सर एक चीज़ जो मेरे ज़हन में आई है whenever we are talking with SPS is कि since SPS is in the industry and we are in the higher education institute, they need our feedback on how to go about developing these courses. एक चीज़, दूसरी चीज़ ये कि they have the expertise to actually implement it, but they need human resource to actually have it developed. Please correct me if I'm going off track here, Ashmat Saab.
What you're saying, Dr. Saad, is correct.
So एक चीज़ तो I would like to thank SPS for their initiative here. Okay. And secondly, I would like to extend my appreciation for their generosity and extra time that they put in. So,
Sir, I am excited to know about them. Actually, मैं तो recently इनके साथ interaction अब हुआ. It looks really encouraging and good और useful लग रहा है. और after your feedback, जो कि एक हम कहेंगे कि peer feedback है, I hope that would be quite useful for us as well, inshallah.
जी
जी डॉक्टर साहब
जी जी
जी आप खत्म
if you could allow me to share my desktop, तो मैं थोड़ा सा I would like to share what this ये जो cognitive system for CSM software, they have been kind enough to share that CSM for with Nouman Institute. अच्छा, Nouman Institute में although we started working on it 2 or 3 months back, but at that time we didn't have the knowledge or the true understanding how to actually use this software. So in the last 2 or 3 months, we have been able to not only understand how to utilize the NIST cybersecurity framework, we have been able to actually put in some numbers here. तो अगर आपको ये डैशबोर्ड नज़र आ रहा हो तो नमल इंस्टीट्यूट में थोड़ा सा इनके एसेट असेसमेंट, रिस्क असेसमेंट और इस तरह का कुछ काम जो है ना कल रात तक हो गया है, which is very helpful. In the sense that not only we are able to understand how we have to tackle the cybersecurity threat, we are now able to comprehend where to start with. So I would definitely recommend you to start your initiative by looking at this software CSM, and I think Rizwan and Hashim would be kind enough to share this with you. Thank you very much.
In fact, thank you, Dr. Saad, for your feedback. If anybody in the audience would like to use Cognitive Security Manager, please do send us an email at spinnlabs@sbsnet.com. And thank you, Dr. Mudassir. मैंने आपको भी अभी academic initiative program IBM का उसका कुछ collateral email किया था during this session. What I'll do is I'll actually share that with all the audience who are in our mailing list. Though we are 2 minutes past the time, I'll take about a minute or so, and I just want to go around the audience. I see some new faces. I'll go down my attendance list here. If you can please unmute yourself, just so that we know, and if you can share your name, your institution, and your interest in cybersecurity. First, we have Mahmood Yusuf Saab. Sir, would you like to unmute and share with us?
Assalamu alaikum.
Ji walaikum salam.
My name is Mahmood Yusuf. I am from Computer Science Department, third year, and interested in implementing AI in cybersecurity. I have some little bit expertise in AI.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Next we. All right. Okay. Thank you. Next we have Mr. Saifullah. I'm just going fast because we're already 3 minutes past.
Assalamualaikum. My I am from department. I'm interested on this side. Thank you.
All right. Next we have Mr. Abdullah.
Sir, my name is Abdullah and I am from Nouman Institute doing computer science. Actually, right now I am at learning side, but my goal is at the end is cybersecurity. So right now I am learning, acquiring things.
Okay. Next we have I think Dr. Mudassir Saab ka taaruf, I believe ho gaya hai. Mr. Manzoorul Haq Saab.
Hashim, if I may intervene. Salman, Abdullah, Saifullah, Mahmood Yusuf, they are from Nouman Institute, mashallah, CS year 3. And they have shown extra interest in cybersecurity. In fact, they are actually looking forward to working on their final year projects in the same domain. Or we have been getting together, mashallah, in the past month or so, gearing up to actually not only improve our knowledge, but also to get a hands-on experience on the tools that you have provided. So I'm so happy to see them here today in the session. Previous sessions में इसलिए नहीं इनको बुलाया था क्योंकि they were मतलब थोड़ा सा ना startups थे. So thank you very much.
I mean, this is great. Thank you to your team also, and thank you Nouman sir, thank you Rizwan, thank you all the participants. We really hope you found this session useful. The next session will be on the first Tuesday of the next month, and you will be receiving the invites. अगर आप में से किसी ने form fill नहीं किया, तो it is available on the SPINN Labs website, faculty affiliate. It just allows us to reach out to you for the upcoming events. Thank you very much, everyone.